After watching this video, you are going to learn how to read people like a book and raise your emotional intelligence. This is part 2 of my series, so feel free to check out part 1 if you're interested in developing a greater self-awareness to also help raise your emotional intelligence. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Eva, and in this space we talk about how to level up and live our dream lives. We discuss things like feminine energy, holistic wellness, and mindset, so if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing and keep watching. People make judgments on whether someone is trustworthy, competent, and likable within a single second of seeing someone's face. Since clicking on this video, you've probably already made a judgment about me and if you're likely to benefit from watching this. And that is exactly why emotional intelligence is so important. It helps people learn how to read the room, how to read yourself, and how to read others. It helps us build and maintain relationships with others while also helping to understand them on a deeper level. So we're going to be going over 3 categories on how to read people like a book. Number 1, we're going to be talking about how to read people's body language. Number 2, we're going to be talking about how to read a conversation. And number 3 will just be some general advice that will help us in any situation, whether it be over text, FaceTime, in person, whatever. So with that being said, let's jump in. First off, I want to talk about body language because the body communicates so much info that is not always verbally said. In fact, we can think about this through the lens of the 7-38-55 rule. Researchers found that 7% of our communication is through the words that we literally say. 38% is our tone and the voice that we use, and 55% of our communication is expressed through our body language. So let's get into some of the specifics on what people are expressing with their bodies and what that signals. Let's talk about the eyes. People say they are the window to the soul. You've probably heard the common advice that if people are avoiding eye contact, then they might be lying. And, there might be some truth to this, but liars might also know this, so they might intentionally lock in with some eye contact. But there are also a lot of specific areas that our eyes will look, and that signals different types of memories that our brain is eliciting and other types of processing. As we get into some of these specifics, you might be able to use it to decode if somebody is being truthful or not, or just how the information that they are saying relates to the body language and the movement that you're seeing them express. I want to also point out that this is of course going to be different for each individual person. So let's get into it. If you are seeing someone look up to the right or the left while they're talking in conversation, chances are they are visualizing something. So it might be a past memory, or they might even be constructing an image in their mind. This often happens when we're telling stories, If I'm thinking back to that time in 5th grade when I was running through the park with my friends, I might look up as I picture these images in my mind. So if somebody's telling you a story and they're talking about a memory, that's often going to be the movement of their eyes that you will see. When someone is looking down, whether to the left or the right, oftentimes they are processing something. It might be self-talk that they're going through, so some sort of emotional processing where they are playing ideas or thoughts in their head. Or it could also signal that they are processing what they are hearing somebody say, especially if they are looking to the left side. This might be mirrored in the video, but you get the idea. Next up, if somebody is glancing a lot, like they're looking to the left and the right, maybe even in a fast-paced way, they might be evaluating options. So literally just imagine if you're choosing between apples and oranges, you're kind of looking back and forth between them. And so that's kind of what happens inside of our brain. Our eyes might kind of dart around as they think through these different options. This might also occur if somebody is considering different viewpoints or brainstorming, so maybe you see this in a meeting. Or if you're talking through life plans with somebody, you can kind of get a gauge of how seriously they're taking this or how much they're actually considering the options that you're providing. Finally, if somebody's eyes are darting around very rapidly, like they're kind of scanning the room and their eyes aren't really settling in one place, this might signal some sensory overload. They might be feeling overwhelmed or anxious. So it's a chance for you to kind of check in and ask yourself, okay, did I say something that might be overwhelming them? Is there something that I can do to support this person? Because oftentimes when your eyes are moving rapidly, it is not a feeling of calm that it brings. It means that we are scanning and maybe even checking for a sense of safety. Okay, let's also talk about smiling. There are two types of ways that we can typically smile, and they impact our eyes in different ways. So when somebody is giving a fake smile, you will notice that the creases of their eyes do not move in the slightest. However, when somebody is giving a genuine smile, like, I'm so happy, you notice that the creases actually move up. So whether it's in a picture or a first greeting, you know, is somebody genuinely happy to see you, or are they just saying, I'm so happy to see you? So when talking about body language, I think it's also important that we acknowledge physical posture. So I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience, but there have been times where I've asked a friend or I've asked a family member, you know, how are you doing? And they've said to me the standard answer of, oh, I'm fine, or I'm good. But you can see in their posture, they're slumped over, their head is kind of down, and it is very clear from their body language that they're expressing that they're not actually fine. And in the past, I've even mentioned this. I've been like, really? Because it doesn't look like you're fine. And what I think this does is it allows us to be a little more honest and authentic with each other, because in the past when I have said that, you know, people have been able to say, actually, yeah, I'm not doing fine and here's why. So it allows you to kind of remove the veil and go a little deeper beyond the surface. A lot of times people don't want to burden others with their problems. They just want to say the standard, I'm fine. But remember, that's only accounting for 7% of our communication. And if you are looking physically like a little cat that's curled up in a ball and afraid, then that's not going to convey the message that you are fine. So you can use this to read others and help analyze how they are feeling. And it's also a good thing to keep in mind when you want to convey a certain emotion. If you want to be seen as very confident, then things like having good posture, you know, having your head held high. Back in high school when I did cheerleading, before every single competition, we would have to stand with our hands on our hips and we would have to look up, and we called it a power pose. And I know it sounds very, very silly, but think about it. This is kind of how superheroes stand, and you are tricking your body and signaling it into thinking that, okay, I am strong, I am confident, I am powerful, whether or not that's how you actually feel. But body language plays a huge role in that. Okay, moving on to conversation. First, let's talk about silence and how important it is. Number one, in your own communication, not being afraid to pause can actually signal a lot of confidence. Like, you don't need to just rush through your words. But when you are reading other people, especially when you are asking them a question, you're trying to figure out if they're telling the truth or not, don't be afraid of the silence. Don't be afraid to pause. Ask them a question, you know, oh, how was your weekend? What did you do? If they say, oh, it was good, you can kind of just sit and smile and nod. And that silence is likely going to prompt them to say more, to elaborate. Listen for their answer, just wait. Even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable for you, they will probably also feel a little bit of that discomfort, and so they will be more likely to want to speak up and add more. I can't tell you how many times I have used this, and it has just worked out to my advantage, to say the least. Another great strategy to understand people better and be able to read them like a book is to really just figure out what motivates them. Is it love? Is it money? Is it power? Influence? We all have the same goals, but we prioritize them in different ways. So for one person, family might be the most important thing in the world, or maybe structure and security is very important, whereas somebody else really values adventure and novelty and new experiences. And so the way that we prioritize our happiness is going to look different for different individuals. Once we start to understand what the frame is that they're operating in, their actions start to make a lot more sense. There's this saying that I recently heard in a video that is, be strict with yourself and tolerant with others. So we can be objective and kind of firm in our boundaries for ourselves, but in others, what I would say is to work to understand people deeply and not assume that one instance or one experience represents them as a whole. People are so complex, so multifaceted. I know you already know this because you are an individual yourself. So we have to peel back the onion and understand some of those layers a little bit deeper. Sorry you guys, the lighting is changing a little, so I'm gonna try to adjust. All right, hopefully my head isn't cut off. I would also say truly listen to the words that people say and believe them, but take it with a grain of salt, because sometimes what we find is people will say one thing, but their actions are misaligned. So are they always talking about X, but actually doing Y? What this likely signals is that their moral character, the idea that they have of themselves in their head, is a little bit higher than the reality that we actually see them living out. So just take note of that. You know, people always want to think of themselves as the good guy, the good person, but actions, of course, speak louder than words, and words are only 70% of communication anyways. Finally, the third tip I have for you guys to be able to read people like a book and raise your emotional intelligence is to trust your intuition. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that trusting your intuition and having that deep inner knowing is very, very important when we want to connect to our feminine energy. We all have this deep inner knowing. It's just a question of how much do we listen to that voice, how much do we trust it? Are we dealing with self-doubt where our first impression of somebody is kind of, you know, we're on the fence, but everybody else seems to really like this person, so we're just going to go with it anyways? Trust that intuition. There's a reason that it is telling you something. And I have a few different activities that are pretty fun to be able to strengthen this. So the first one is watching cut videos. I don't know if you guys have seen this channel before, but they are based in Seattle and they do all sorts of lineup type videos, or guess my job, guess my ethnicity, all sorts of crazy categories. So my friends and I love to watch these, and we guess along with the individuals. And what I have learned to do is always go with my first instinct. As soon as they walk on screen, I take into account their body language, their posture, and whatever the topic is. If it's 5 different jobs that we're choosing between, go with your gut. And this is kind of like a fun game, and it's a way to strengthen that self-trust. Because the last time I did it, I swear I got like 7 out of 8 right, and I was so proud of myself. Another strategy to trust your intuition to a greater degree is to study yourself. Learn the types of people that you are drawn to and how that relates to some of your past experiences. Because oftentimes these things show up in patterns, whether it is friendships that we seek out, whether it is relationships where the partner has that same sort of role. That's going to help you understand how this person's behavior might show up if you have previous experience with people that are similar to them. Of course, everybody's an individual, but there's a reason that there are archetypes. There's a reason why I made a video about the 7 female archetypes, which you should check out if you're interested. Okay, the sun is almost down, so I better wrap this up. My final point, which I have mentioned in other videos, which I will also link above, is that everybody we meet is ourself pushed out. It's kind of a tricky concept to first grasp. I know I struggled understanding it when I first heard it, but all of the experiences that we have, all of the people that we have close relationships with, that we are interacting with, are reflections of how we view the world. And the same can be said for other people. Those are all reflections of how they view the world. So if we are continuing to attract negative experiences or negative people in our lives that make us feel in certain ways, then being able to study ourselves can help us understand why we attract those types of people. It might give you insight into their underlying motives of why they seek somebody like you out, why you seek somebody like them out, and can help you heal from a lot of past experiences or triggers. So with that all being said, and with the sun setting, I hope you have found this information useful. I hope you can take at least one of these pieces of advice and apply it in the real world. Thank you so much for watching. I would love if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.